All right, Mike, how's it going?
It's going good, man. Survived another week of the 2020 plague, so can't complain.
That's right. How was work this week?
Work was good. It's starting to slow down, definitely a little bit, but still working, I guess. That's better than most people.
No, it is, man. It's one of those things you got to be grateful for. I know for me that, working from home and being in a sales job and still being able to do what I can via, email, Skype, phone call, Zoom. I'm very fortunate because there's so many people that have been affected by it.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to actually be able to leave and do stuff because I don't know how everyone has not left their house. I would be going insane right now. So luckily, I haven't had to deal with that.
Yeah, no, just trying to find a routine, especially with kids, man. It's just doing what you can to kind of keep them occupied and some level of a routine.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely understand that.
Well, hey, we had another great week. Episode 2 in the books. We're starting this one, and I still the momentum and the feedback has been absolutely amazing. I one of the things that we've talked about is just trying to increase the engagement. The feedback that I'm getting, me specifically with emails and texts and some of the Facebook comments have been great. And we definitely want to encourage that. We've seen people subscribe to our YouTube channel, which
Yep.
we would love, and even getting to the point where they can put comments in there because we're laying the groundwork and telling our story, but we want people and are encouraging people to ask, if there's certain things that they want us to touch on, which will help for future discussions. But I know you've kind of been busy with some additional media outlets that you set up for us.
Yep. We have a Twitter account now, an official Twitter account. It's at TWHS 83. So if you guys want to engage with not just Derek but me as well, or just either one of us, doesn't matter. You guys can leave comments, anything you want, honestly. Things that annoy you about us, things that you like, things that we should change, whatever. I mean, we know it's pretty raw still, so we're working on it. We understand that, but Derek gets your guys' feedback and he lets me know most of it. But it would be cool if you guys could just leave comments there or the YouTube channel so we both can see them and I can see what else we need to work on. So
Yeah, just two dudes trying to figure this thing out, right, man?
that's right. That's right. That's what we're doing.
So we'll dive in. So this is we talked about this earlier. This will probably be our last episode of what we would call kind of framing our backstory. And so we left off in our last episode coming out of kind of the divorce experience, and then what we want to kind of talk about today was just the emotional thoughts that go along with post divorce, not only the emotional side, but just the reality of practically all the things that you have to deal with, because there's just a lot to unpack there. And I'll start by saying, and some of this has come from some of the feedback I've got, but just in general, you and I can only share our experiences from, our perspective, from the lens that we experienced our divorces through. And every divorce is going to have their nuance. There's going to be different time amounts that people spent together, different reasons why the split happened. But no two divorces are similar. So you and I we can share our experience and we can talk about how it affected us. And hopefully there's bits and pieces that kind of resonate with folks. But it would be naive for us to think that, we can all encompass maybe what other people are experiencing or feeling at the same degree just based off of what we experienced, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree 100% with that.
Yeah. So, one of the things that, so to kind of frame this, you get divorced and you can put it into potentially two buckets. There's things that happen that I would think from an outside perspective are no brainers of like, okay, that makes sense why, that divorce happened, whether it's just a continual amount of disrespect, some just egregious outside factor, infidelity, if there's domestic abuse, God forbid, or just a continual pattern of emotional abuse, like those, I think most people would be like, all right, that makes sense why,
Right.
that couple's not together. But then there's that secondary layer of where this is where I think it gets tested on the strength of the marriage and the maturity of the two people on if it's, and we kind of touched on this last session, if it's if it stresses with job loss, money issues, life issues that come up. I mean, whatever it might be, where depending on the strength of the relationship and the couple, people could be like, well, maybe you could have weathered the storm, maybe you couldn't have. But there's a clear differentiation on like some crazy egregious reasons versus some subjective stuff, right?
Yeah. Yep. No, definitely. Yeah. There's the things that caused the stress, and then there's the things that between the two people that caused the divorce. Like the stresses may have been a factor, but it's not the reason. And I think that's what we're going to kind of talk on a little bit here.
Yeah, and so for I think both of our situations, and we're we've kind of made a vow that we're not going to get into the very specifics of kind of our situation. I think based on the last two episodes, everybody has a general idea of kind of where we're at now. Me and you don't fall into that egregious, like very blatant, there was something so profound that like that we, it had to happen. This was just a gradual building upon things. And I think both you and I would, at least right now, maybe not so in the moment, agree that we were both just emotionally incapable, naive, whatever. I mean, the skills that we have now, through our experiences, reflecting back to in the moment, if things were applied, not to say that this isn't one of those, like we would change the past, but like you learn through experiences, and I think we've done the work and we know that. But in those moments, we just weren't at the emotional capacity to kind of understand what was happening. And so, as we dive into this, just it's important to know, like those two buckets, I think we fall into that second one that we talked about, where from an outside perspective, it's like, well, like maybe those are things that could have been worked through. It wasn't something so outrageous.
Yeah, no, it was a death by a thousand cuts. I mean, it wasn't one huge thing happened and then that was it. It just went to turmoil. It was thing after thing after thing after thing. Now, some of them were big things. I mean, it wasn't like these were small things that happened, but they were things that just kept happening. And through immaturity and, not understanding of each other, we kind of lost our way. We kind of started, instead of dealing with them together, you kind of start drifting apart a little bit. And then once you start doing that, you start feeling a little more selfish and think that you're right and they're wrong and that you need to do things your way. And even if you feel like you're trying at the time, like sitting where we're at now and actually being able to reflect, we can see those things were wrong. But at the time, I could have swore I was right 100%. But
Mike, and there's such a good, I mean, that comment alone is something that we've talked about. It is, and when you're mad and you're angry and you're frustrated, the path of least resistance is to blame, because
yeah,
the look what that happened or they did, and it takes a lot of self-reflection, a lot of humility to look internally and be like, okay, like there's two parties to both, and you got to be able to recognize what you did to contribute to this, and it's not just on them. Like there were things that you definitely did or insecurities that you had that led to that. So to sit there and say, hey, that's all on them, no matter how bad the situation was, there's never a situation where it's 100% on the other person.
no, no. I mean, there's not, and you're lying to yourself if you feel like that is how it is. And if that's how you feel, let's say you've been divorced or you're just recently divorced and you feel like you were right in every situation, you're not to the point yet where you can actually look at it not emotionally, because when you're looking at it with all the emotions attached to it, you're going to feel like you're right. And I'm not saying there's not parts of it that you were right, but at the end of the day, does it really matter if you were right or not? What matters is two people work together to work it out together. Whether you agree, disagree, you should be able to come to an understanding and work through it together. And when you don't do that, when you have to be right or they're right or whatever, that's where it just goes down. You'll never recover from that if that's the attitude you have going into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think it's easy to do. It's not like I'm sitting here saying this now. I'm telling you, you would not have heard this from me at the time at all. Like not even a little bit of this. So, it definitely takes a lot of self-reflecting, a lot of just getting outside of yourself and not thinking emotionally about things. And that's why it's always easy to give your friend advice or somebody else advice, because there's no emotions attached to it. You can see things for how they are. You can be like, damn, why are you acting like that? I guess so. Who cares? Like, that's such a silly thing to get pissed off about. And but for them, it doesn't mean that, and they don't understand how that's how you see it. So that's just how it is, though.
Yeah, and it's a process, and that's something that we'll talk about as this kind of goes along. But irregardless of what caused the divorce, so if it's something so bad as again, God forbid, domestic violence, all the way to just irreconcilable differences and death by 1,000 cuts, as you put it, the reality is you're now divorced. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the circumstances were. At the end of the day, like, you now have a new reality. You are and from our perspective, you are a single parent with one kid or multiple kids, and this is now your new reality. And I think that in of itself comes a kind of like an aha moment of, oh man, like, this is really bad for the last 6 months, year, 2 years, our entire marriage, like whatever the period was, whatever the circumstances was, like you like, I've been battling, I've been fighting, I've been like, I waved the white flag. It can't be done anymore, whether this is me waving the white flag because it's my decision or not. The reality is I am now on my own, but I have these children, and that in and of itself is a monumental, emotional, just, it's an aha moment. And it's for people who have never been there, it is such a scary, fearful experience that it's tough.
It's super tough. And I don't think everybody's is the exact same when you have that aha moment. I mean, I can tell you right now, for me, that aha moment didn't come for, I mean, almost a year. And now, not saying that I wasn't being a good dad. I was on autopilot as a good dad to my kids, but trying to figure out what just happened. I mean, I prepared for a thunderstorm, a severe thunderstorm, but when a tornado, a hurricane, earthquake, and a tsunami all hit me at once, I didn't know how to handle that. I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't mentally prepared for that. And not only was I trying to pick up the pieces for my kids, I was trying to figure out who I was, because I didn't have any identity after this. Like, I couldn't figure out what I was anymore. I was a failure in my eyes. I lost my family. I was a mess. So to be able to work that out on top of what happened, on top of I have to be a dad to these kids and make sure that nothing affects them at all. Like, they're priority number one. Like, so all the other stuff had to take a back seat. So, but you're right. I mean, it is what it was. There was no getting out of it. There was no changing it. I mean, it had to happen. But I will say I was in denial forever. I was in denial that it happened. And it took a long time to get out of that denial. I mean, it's just like stages of grieving. I mean, you're just in denial. You just can't believe it happened. Like, that's not what was supposed to happen in your life. Like, how are you now a divorced, dad and single dad? And you got two kids that look up and rely to you. So you got to, be there for them. So it's tough at first.
I absolutely love how you just said that. I was on autopilot as a dad, because I think there's a lot that goes into that, because I think I know what you mean by that. But like, when you say I was an autopilot as a dad, what specifically do you mean? Because I think I know what you're saying, but like, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
So besides being in a deep depression on my own, I mean, as soon as the kids get in there, you have a smile on your face. You do nothing but engage with them constantly. You never do anything else. You never, honestly, like me personally, like when they were with me, they were almost like a release of all the situations. So I could just be dad. And, even though inside I'm like screaming, like to them, I'm smiling, I'm telling them good job. Oh, great painting, oh, great word that you misspelled and have a letter backwards. Like, you guys are doing so good. You're just being a proud dad, trying to almost overcompensate for the guilt you're feeling, because you feel like you ruined their lives. Like, that's what I felt like. I felt like what happened has ruined their lives. And, obviously that's not what happened, but when you're going through it, that's kind of how you feel. That's how I felt. I can't speak for everybody, but that's how I felt. So you just kind of do whatever you can to make them feel as happy and stuff. You may give them extra snacks, or you may do whatever. I don't know what it is, but I mean, I'm just saying, it's like you're just kind of going through the motions with them, knowing that they're going to leave and you're going to go right back to this pity party for yourself.
And that's and this is where it's probably worth pointing out, like you know, you pride yourself in being just a kick-ass dad. I do the exact same. Like my kids are my world. You're same thing. Like if we didn't have our kids, like our identities would be lost. And so quick disclaimer on that. And like I think we both try and be as non-judgmental about situations as possible, but in some of the feedback and conversations I've had with people, not just through doing this podcast, but just in general, some of these circumstances where these dads through divorce or long-term relationships where kids are involved and they literally fall off the face of the earth, they're not involved. Like I struggle responding to that because that is so foreign to me. Like, I mean, we're going to get back to what you just mentioned, but like that, like I just have, I just can't imagine. And so for the, you know, and this is more maybe for the women that may listen to this, like the fathers of your children that are just nowhere to be seen or involved. Like I just, Mike and I will probably have a hard time resonating with that because to me, it's just, again, I don't want to be judgmental, but the men who have fathered a child and have no desire to be in their kids' lives, like I can't, I don't even know. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, we definitely don't come from that place because neither one of us are anything close to that. Honestly, they're pieces of shit if that's how they are. And but I will say that I don't want somebody who has that situation going on to feel like their kids can't function or be good without them. Because if you're a good mom and you're there for your kids, they're going to be just fine. And honestly, another thing that they may worry about is, will there be another guy that will love my kids like a dad needs to? And I will tell you right now, yes, they will. Because I know if I got into a situation where somebody had another kid, I would not look at that kid as a step kid or a kid that's not mine. Like I would embrace that kid, you know, over time, obviously not right away, but I mean, like there will be that. So there is hope, and it doesn't mean that all is lost because unfortunately their dad is a piece of shit.
Yeah. And you know, unfortunately, I think coming right off of a divorce, like it's easy for people to assume that that's going to be the case. So,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
we'll, yeah. So going kind of back to what you said, like the autopilot overcompensating for, you know, for the time that you're with your kids to be present. I think that's very important because there's two parts that there's the emotional side where it's all right. I'm with my kids and I've got to be so aware of maybe how the divorce is affecting them, and I've got to make sure that you know I'm being strong and I'm compassionate and I'm showing them that like no matter what happened with their mom and dad, that like life will go on and it's fine. And everybody, that whole cliche of like kids are resilient, no big deal. Like yes, I would agree. Kids are resilient, 100%.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
if people downplay the significance of what like breaking a family up and what the new reality is, and like it's just going to be fine, like no, like I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like that's not the case. Like
It's
my
not.
experience,
No.
your experience, like that is not the case. And so like you can put on a game face, especially with your children, but like you still need to figure out a way, depending on their age, to be real about like the situation.
Yeah, no, it's 100% true. And honestly, you never know when it's going to come out. The first several years that we separated, my kids did not really talk about it, didn't ask questions, didn't seem affected at all. I remember talking to people being like, what the hell is wrong with my kids? They have not really brought it up. They haven't said anything. They haven't seemed any different. Um, but I will say, years later, questions started coming up. That's when tears started happening. That's when the emotions and the thing. And right then, I needed early on. I didn't. If they didn't talk about it, I didn't discuss it. But what I learned is talking to them is what you need to do. I sat them down and said, look, I don't have divorced parents. I don't know exactly what you guys are going through, but I can't imagine how hard it is. You know, I basically let them know no matter what, they can ask me any questions and I will answer anything that I feel like they need to know. If it's questions about what, who did what, then none of those answers, none of those good answers. But I mean, as far as telling them they can tell me how they feel, letting them know it's okay to be upset, and talk to me about it is perfectly fine and healthy. And once they kind of know, and also reminding them that, yes, your mom and dad are not together, but you still have both your mom and dad. and they both still love you just the same as they did before. I mean, I think it helps them a little bit, but even today, they still, I mean, it's been years and they still bring stuff up or have questions. So it's definitely, you never know when it's going to happen. It may not happen early. It just depends on how the kids are, really.
No, it's so true. And like you talk about, like, because it's not a one-time thing. It's not like, hey, you get divorced, like, let's talk about it. And then like we package
No.
it away. Like, you
Yeah.
know, you need to keep talking about it. And it's so funny that you said that. Like actually last week with my oldest, who's 16 now. I mean, it's been 5 years, and I was talking to her, and she had mentioned that, I was like, hey, you know, I was talking about just her brother and sister and some things, and she's, you know, she's like, oh, I kind of just felt like when you moved into the place and it was just you and the three of us, she's like, I felt like it was my responsibility to kind of take my brother and sister under my wing and be kind of like a mom to them, which, I mean, I think they're for honesty. And like, I even kind of saw it in the moment, and even now, like reflecting back on it, and it kind of hurt my heart a little bit. But
Yeah. Oh,
she
God.
was,
Yeah.
she was right. And I wasn't emotionally strong enough at that point. And just, God bless my kid. And she's so smart, but she's right. Like, as I remember, and I think back about how much she took the other two under her wing and like helped with, you know, getting them into the bath or the shower or nighttime stuff. And you just, that's where I only tell that story because, you know, folks that think that like, oh, you just address it and it's fine. Like, no, like, you're going through your own stuff in your head, and we'll talk about that here next. But like, to sit there and think that, you know, and people say, hey, kids are resilient, they'll be fine. Like, yes, they will, but like, that doesn't give you a pass to just address it once and not. Like, you have to talk to them constantly about what they're thinking, what they're feeling.
Yeah, you do. You do. You have to be as open as you possibly can be with them. You cannot let any pride, any hurt feelings, anything. You have to be an adult. You have to get over whatever you're feeling and talk to your kids and let them know everything is going to be okay. And you will do everything in your power to make it okay. I mean, honestly, like, you know, we both have girls. You know, I went from the dad who's this hard ass who, you know, I'm going to have your brother beat up any boyfriend you have, to realizing that I don't have the mom in the same household anymore to give the comfort of all that, and that she can go talk to. That if I want her to talk to me, like, I'm going to have to actually soften up and stop threatening every guy she says is cute, and tell her that, you know, it's okay and that I'm here to talk to. Because I also have to be, I mean, you know, she's a girl, she's going to have periods, all these things I need to let her, she needs to be comfortable talking to me about. I have to be okay talking to her about it. And I think if you present that and you show them how comfortable you are with things, they'll respond to it. But you're right. It's a never ending, you know, thing. It's a constant. I mean, it's, you know, going on 8-9 years, they still have questions and they still need to be reassured about things, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think as long as you keep doing that, they're going to be good. I mean, both our kids are unbelievable. I can't speak highly enough about our kids. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, they're great. Like, and so when you, as the years have passed and they've gotten older, how how has your story changed? How has your transparency changed with kind of telling them about what happened? And how much of that do you kind of coordinate with your ex-wife about, hey, these are questions that are coming up, and this is what they're asking? Like, how do you approach that?
So I guess that's one thing we haven't really coordinated. Like, I've never actually specifically spoke with her about how we'll answer these things. I know on my end, they don't know any details, none at all. Like, anytime they ask questions about what happened, I tell them it doesn't matter. None of that matters. All they need to know is that their mom and dad love them. And it frustrates them now that they're getting older. They want more details, of course. But I feel like they don't need to know that. None of that matters. And I feel like I'm getting the same on the other end. Like, they've never come to me and told me that she said this or that. So I think we kind of just already knew, you know, so I never say anything bad about their mom. You always lift their mom up. I mean, it's their mom. I mean, like, there's no reason to do that. I mean, I have no reason anyways, but I'm just saying is, like, they need to know, even if you guys aren't together, you still care about each other for them. Like, it's important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And with I mean, specifically my oldest, like, those questions are becoming, you know, and she's very intuitive, so she can kind of piece together. She's like, like it's starting to make a little bit more sense. And so like as they get older and become, more just aware socially, I think inevitably as they interact with you and interact with your ex, like I think they'll start piecing some of that together. But if you at least don't entertain, the questions that they have, they're going to jump to conclusions. So it's important to, at least answer those.
Yeah, answer them. And like I said, you can answer them as in you're never gonna know, so stop asking. And they'll get frustrated and be annoyed. But like for me, it's for the best. Like what benefit would come out of it? I think zero. So because then they could try to blame or get upset, and there's just no reason. So and yeah, it's funny how the oldest daughters get into their new role. I mean, like my daughter, she's so motherly to me now. I mean, she's even like, Dad, you need to get on Match.com. And I'm like, man, why are you even worried about that kind of stuff? Like, stop. Like, you're my daughter. Just be my daughter. Like, don't worry about me. I'm fine. Like, she'll constantly want to know if I'm okay. She'll leave notes in my bed. Like, she'll sneak in and put a note on my bed when I'm going to bed. I mean, she's a sweetheart. But
she is great. That's awesome. So let's talk about, so we the emotional side of it, and one of the things we want to touch on is just so there's the practical side. So you're going through your head and you're talking about, or inside your head, you're okay, like I've got a lot of mental things and I'm trying to just process. And then, I'm a parent. And so I've got to put, this front on, not front. I mean, it is a front almost, because you know that that's not your reality. Like you're trying to project that everything's fine with your kids. And so there's that side of it. But then there's also a practical side of like, oh man, like we're now split. And depending on people's situations, like I know for me, I was the one that now got a new house, that when you buy a new house, like you have to furnish the new house. And, there's custody things and, no matter what necessarily happened and how drawn out the divorce is, which luckily mine was not bad. So there wasn't a lot of, fees in terms of court costs and attorney fees. But there's a lot of financial strain that goes into, new place, new apartment, new furnishing, like whatever it might be. So it's just a lot. Like you're, one side of your head is like mentally just trying to come to grips, like this is my new reality. And then now you've got your kids. And then the other side is like, how am I going to make this work? And so there's just so much that hits you all at once, that when you're in the midst of going through, like, should I get divorced or not? You're so tied up emotionally and like, do I even want to be in this, or is it not right for me? You finally make that decision, or maybe it's made for you that like, no, that's not the case. Now your new reality hits. Now it's a whole new like wave of shit that you've got to think about, that maybe in those moments you didn't, and now it hits you.
yeah, no, it hits you, and it hits you hard. And the problem is you're at your worst when you're trying to figure out all this stuff. So it is a super emotional time. It's super stressful. You went from the stress of what was happening towards the end to the stress of now you're doing it all on your own, and how are you going to do it? And, me personally, like right towards the end, because, I lost my job, I got another job. But that job on its own it was hard to make all the payments. So I got a part-time job. Well, once we separated, I still had the job and the part-time job, but I had nobody there when I had the kids. So I would have to have my brother come over and stay and watch them while they slept, while I went and did my second job and then come back. So it was like all the stuff I didn't normally stress about, because, in our, thing, we, it was like I did, we both worked, but like I worked, the bills were kind of more on her. Like she was better with the money and all that stuff. Like I had to jump on all that stuff and get more organized. All the things that, at the time, me being so down and depressed, were really hard to like focus and try to like get everything right. So it was definitely a struggle. And, you just push through. I mean, I wish there was better advice to say, this is what you do and this is how you get through it. I will say I didn't do it, but I know it would have helped if I had somebody to talk to and run things by and maybe just hear me, because everything I was saying was in my head. And when shit's in your head, I mean, shit sounds crazy. I mean, like you can say anything in your head and it makes sense. And as soon as you actually say it out loud to somebody, you almost see it in a different perspective. And me not talking to anybody, not really anybody's fault. I mean, like, I wasn't putting myself out there. I mean, you know, you have friends, they're all married. You don't want to hang out with married friends when you're just separated. I mean, it's like you feel ashamed. You feel like this like loser who's hanging out with a bunch of married people and their children, and you're just like, hey, remember me? Yeah, I had a family. Here I am by myself. Like, it's so hard to like be okay with that, especially right in the beginning. You obviously you get used to it, and not only that, if let's say you want to go have fun, well, you're having fun and your kids aren't around. Like, then you feel guilty about that. Like, when I say fun, I just mean like you're doing something that is not sitting in the house moping, like going out and doing anything. I remember feeling so guilty that I was doing stuff. Like, my kids aren't with me, and here I am trying to have fun. Like, what a piece of shit. Like, these are the thoughts I had. Now, I'm not speaking for everybody. This is what I felt. So I had a really hard time adjusting everything and trying to figure out the money and the living situation and how I was going to do it on my own. So it's definitely tough.
No, you're hitting it right on the head, man. And that is what you just said is a topic for future discussions too, because that shame of doing something for yourself in lieu of all the responsibilities that you have is such a detriment to your mental health. To sit
Yeah.
like you can do such a kick-ass job with 97% of all the things that you have going on with your kids and your work and all these responsibilities, and you take a little bit of time out for yourself to decompress, whatever that may mean for you as an individual, and in the moment to feel bad about yourself for doing that is such a disservice. And it takes a long time to finally recognize that, but that I mean, that is such a shame in itself. And so, like, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's why I think having somebody who's either one, been through it, two, or a show like this where you can listen to people talk about it. It's okay to take care of yourself through this. Like, you are important. Like, your kids need you at 100%. They can't have you at this depressed, mopey stage. Like, yes, I know you're working through it and you're doing fine with the kids, but like, they still sense it. They still know you're sad. Like, whether you hide it or not, I know they know. They always could tell. So it's okay to try to work on yourself. You're really doing it for them anyways. I mean, for yourself, but I mean, like, doing it for yourself helps your kids. So just remember that, because I didn't know that when I was doing it.
So let me and I'll ask you this, and this is, I mean, and this is where it's going to be so circumstantial based on people's divorces and what happened. And I think you and I are in a fortunate situation where we have a really good co-parenting arrangement, and it wasn't always like that. But I would even say, at least for my situation, even early on post divorce, like, there was a mutual respect there. And again, like, I know this is not the case for maybe a majority of people, but there's so many things that go into, okay, like, this is how it happened. And with kids, there's if we're going to be living separate lives now, there's expectations on what's the standard now for discipline, or if certain things come up, what do I need to bring to you as far as like a joint decision versus how I can handle it myself. And that's tough. And how divisive that divorce was kind of predicates that communication flow. But if the whole goal of getting a divorce was like, I'm not happy with you, then that maybe sound, I mean, but that's essentially what, like, I'm not happy doing life with you anymore. We have to split. We have these children together, which we both agree. And again, that's our situation. We both agree are the most important things. How do we come to some term of arrangement where, like, I'm going to have them half time, you're going to have them half time. Stuff's going to come up when they're with me or when they're with you. When those things come up, what predicates me dealing with it on my own versus us having some type of co-parenting joint discussion and coming right off the midst of a divorce? Like, that is tough, man. That's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's super tough. And yeah, you're right. It's different for everybody. I mean, our situations were, the divorce was not a messy divorce. They weren't, hatred filled divorces. So we're obviously coming from a better like way of it happening. So I will say we didn't actually just like sit down and communicate as far as like, well, this is how I'm going to do it. This is how we're going to do it. When we were together, we basically parented pretty similarly. And I knew kind of once we separated, it wouldn't change very much. So obviously when something happens, like that's maybe bigger than a normal thing, you may let them know what happened and just kind of talk to them about how you handled it. And you don't even have to tell them how they're supposed to handle it. But I think even just like mentioning how you do it, well, at least let them know, like, okay, that's how he handled it. Like, and if they have a complete disagreement with it, then they can bring it to your attention. But like, we've never had anything on my end, at least, where we're just in separate worlds. Like, there's little things, but I think you need to pick your battle. You can't get nitpicky over every little thing. Like, well, I don't let him have a snack after 9. Well, I let him stay up till 8:30. You let him go to bed. I mean, like, those kind of things, I think you can just let go. But like, any major thing in your kid's life is when you guys would probably need to communicate a little bit. But like I said, luckily for us, we kind of are on the same page with that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, and that in and of itself is a process, because I would tell you the way that I communicate with my ex-wife today, 5 years removed, about things related to my kids are dramatically different from how things
yeah.
were, 2 months removed from. But there was, even in the midst of, and this is our lens, or my lens at least, through the divorce and all that, there was still some level of baseline respect, which I know some people don't have. And so starting with a baseline and now improving to the point where, we're separate lives and like we're happy for each other. Like, that's, I would say, is the ideal scenario, which is like, for me, like, that's what I wanted to get to. And again, I don't know if everybody can get to that point, but there's comfort in that.
Yeah, 100%. There's super comfort in that. And, I wish I could give advice for people that have a situation that, maybe the other person is immature and is constantly trying to make you look bad and all that stuff. The only thing I could say is never talk bad about that person. Your kids, I think, will eventually figure it out on their own. You just be the parent you need to be. And, I mean, even my kids, like I said, there are certain rules in my house that they don't have at their mom's, and vice versa. And I think as long as everything's basically consistent, it doesn't, it is hard on the kids to go back and forth. I will say that. Like, I know my kids talk about it constantly. Like, it's tough going from there to here. Everything's different. Even though we're basically the same, it's still different. And you have to be understanding with that with the kids and give them a little break and, help them work through it. Now, you still need a parent, and it's really easy. And I will say it's really easy, especially early on, to just be their friend and give them everything they want because you feel guilty, like we said earlier. But, eventually you'll remember that you have to be their parent. And even though, you want to do those things, you kind of need to not. And you need to just be how you would be whether you were together or not.
Yeah. No, I absolutely. So okay. So Mike, we will, like, it was important that we talked about this. I think we can put a pin in just the whole divorce experience, and we want to encourage, as we progress, like, stories from our married divorce experience will come up. But the whole thing with this podcast was talking about, like, just our experiences as legitimately being single parents, dealing with everything that comes along with having a job, having these responsibilities as a kid, as parents, and every, hobbies and all that stuff. We want people's feedback, like, and I appreciate what you just said, because there are certain people's situations that I don't think that we will fully understand. And so if people can, in text, email, comment in on their experience, and maybe we can drop some level of understanding on what you're going through. But for us, like, we really want to start talking about, okay, like, that happened, but here's our reality, and here's how we're navigating life going forward, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yes. I mean, obviously we can only speak from our experience. But I do think we have knowledge, and, I think we can help, even if it's not exact same, or even maybe hearing certain things can help. So yeah, but definitely, we're done with the actual part of the divorce part. But if people have questions or want to know things, or maybe want us to dive into something else of it, not that we won't, because we definitely will. I mean, honestly, we want to do this and help, anyone that's listening if they need it. So, don't hesitate to ask questions.
Yeah. So we've got stories, right? And
we have so many stories.
we're gonna start. So that's, we're gonna close the chapter on divorce stuff. And I think I speak for you when I say, like, I hope that over those last 3 episodes that we have been as respectful as possible with, you know, our personal situations. Our goal was not to get into the details. We are both very fortunate and appreciative of the fact that our ex-wives are great co-parents, that they've both moved on to new relationships. And I mean, we're both very happy for them. Like like,
Yeah.
we are in a unique situation. I mean, we're two dudes that have been similar situations, but we're comfortable talking about our stuff. But like with our exes, like it is it's great. And like I from the bottom of my heart, I'm very happy for them and the role that they play in my kids' lives, and it's great. And I know a lot of people, we may be in the minority on that, which is unfortunate, but that, like, we've prided ourselves on getting to this point.
Yeah, and I think honestly that shows why we're great co-parents. We have respect. Like even if there's disagreements, there's the respect that you have for them and they for you, and that's why it's working out so great. You just have to have that respect. You have to understand that just because these situations happen does not mean that there needs to be any animosity or hatred or anger or any of these kind of things. Like you're in this together. Your kids aren't going anywhere. You're still their parents, and you have to be adults and mature and parent those kids. And respect is a huge thing, and that's why we are, you know, being the way we are. We're not getting in specifics. We're trying to be, and we're trying to be as fair as we can. So I feel like we did a pretty good job. I mean, I don't know. I talk a lot, so maybe I slipped and said something stupid, but you definitely what you said. I agree 100%.
Yeah. So we'll put a cap on the kind of marriage divorce story. We're gonna now fast forward to kind of just live post that. Please, YouTube. That's what he said. Subscribe to the channel. Get on our website, TWHS.net. Email us. Put it on Twitter, like Mike said. We want to get some comments so we can address those as we continue to talk. But I feel like now going forward, we're going to kind of get into the nitty gritty of like what this is about.
Yeah, 100%. Can't wait.
All right, Mike. Have a great week, man. We'll catch up here next week, buddy.
All right, man. Later.
All right. See you, bud.